I walked up the stone steps to my parents' house with a casserole dish balanced in one hand and my daughter Lily's tiny fingers wrapped tightly in the other, trying to steady the nervous flutter in my chest. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon drifted from the open windows. Laughter spilled into the crisp evening air, and from the outside it looked like the perfect family celebration. But I knew better. Every holiday gathering carried its own silent battlefield of favoritism, rivalry, and hidden barbs that always seemed to cut deepest when Samantha was involved. Still, I forced a smile for Lily's sake, because she was only 8 years old and her world should still feel safe and magical, not heavy with the burdens of old family wounds. She clutched a glitter-stickered gift bag she had made for Grandma and whispered, "Do you think she'll like it?" And I kissed her forehead, assuring her that of course Grandma would love it, because how could anyone not love something made with so much care? Inside, the house was alive with noise. Uncles shouting over jokes, cousins running wild through the halls, glasses clinking in the dining room, and my parents greeted Lily with glowing affection before turning to me with the kind of polite, half-hearted embrace that reminded me, as always, where I stood. Samantha, of course, was already in the center of it all, her laughter rising above everyone else's, her smile at me sharp and daring, more a challenge than a welcome, and I told myself to breathe, to hope against all experience that maybe this time she'd let me and Lily be. Lily tugged my sleeve, asking if she could run upstairs with her cousins, and though every protective instinct wanted to keep her near, I nodded and let her go, watching her curls bounce up the stairs until she vanished. For a moment, I allowed myself to sink into the flow of conversation, to laugh at jokes and pretend this was a normal family party, but deep down I felt it, that cold, creeping intuition that peace never lasts long in this house. What I didn't know then was that while I stood there convincing myself that maybe this year would be different, my daughter's laughter upstairs was about to be replaced by screams, and by the end of the night I would be cradling her sobbing body, her beautiful hair gone, while Samantha looked me straight in the eyes and laughed like it was nothing but entertainment. It's just a joke. Growing up in the Addams household meant existing in a world where appearances mattered more than feelings, where the polished silverware on the dining table always gleamed brighter than the truth hiding underneath it, and where my sister Samantha had been crowned the golden child before she could even spell her own name. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who did chores without being asked, who got decent grades, who never caused trouble, but none of that ever earned me the adoration Samantha received simply for being loud, charismatic, and endlessly entertaining to our parents. When she teased me cruelly as a child, pulling my hair or mocking my clothes, it was brushed aside as sibling fun, and when she broke the rules, my parents found a way to excuse her behavior, telling everyone, "That's just Samantha's spirit. She'll grow out of it." She never did. Over time, those small indulgences grew into a sense of entitlement so thick it filled every room she walked into, and the rest of us learned to orbit around her, bending to her moods, laughing at her jokes even when they stung, because keeping Samantha happy was easier than facing the storm of her wrath. By contrast, my own milestones were often ignored. When I graduated college, my mother spent more time bragging about Samantha's Instagram following than acknowledging my degree. And when I got my first job, my father asked if I was sure I didn't want to help Samantha with her big plans, as though my own path was nothing but a placeholder until she succeeded. That favoritism carved scars in me that I buried deep, scars that taught me to expect little from them and build my own quiet life away from their chaos, a life I thought I had managed until Lily came along. Becoming a mother reshaped me entirely, and I vowed with every fiber of my being that my daughter would never feel the invisibility or dismissal that had defined my childhood. She would be loved fiercely, celebrated for who she was, protected at all costs. Which is why every time we stepped into my parents' house, I carried both love and dread in equal measure. Love for the idea of family Lily so desperately deserved to know, dread because I understood how quickly toxic patterns can repeat if left unchecked. My father, aging but still authoritative, clung to peace at all costs, preferring to smooth over Samantha's tantrums rather than confront her, while my mother remained blind with favoritism, praising Samantha's every shallow achievement as though it were genius. And then there was Samantha herself, 30 years old but still acting like the spoiled teenager who had never been told no, flaunting her influence online, always fishing for attention, and still seeing me as the perfect target for her cruelty. The tangled history of these relationships hung heavy over every gathering, invisible to outsiders, but suffocatingly obvious to those of us trapped inside it. And as much as I tried to shield Lily from the weight of that legacy, I knew that each family party was a gamble, an attempt to rewrite old wounds while standing in the very house where they had first been carved. The house was already buzzing with chatter when Lily and I walked in, the warm scent of roasted chicken and cinnamon pies drifting from the kitchen, laughter spilling from the living room, where my uncles were telling the same jokes they'd told every holiday for years. On the surface, it looked like the picture of family harmony, a polished dining table laid out with fine china, children darting up and down the stairs, and my mother bustling between rooms with the pride of a queen hosting her court. But beneath that shine, I felt the familiar current of unease pulling at me. Samantha, of course, was holding court in the center of the room, dazzling everyone with her exaggerated stories about brand deals and celebrity encounters that may or may not have been real. My parents watched her with glowing admiration, their faces lit up as though they had front-row seats at a Broadway performance, and the cousins clustered around her, hanging on every embellished word. When she spotted me at the doorway, she flashed a smile so wide and insincere it almost made me laugh. It was the kind of smile reserved for paparazzi, not family. "Well, look who finally showed up," she said, loud enough for the room to hear, and though her tone was wrapped in false cheer, the barb wasn't lost on anyone. A few people chuckled awkwardly, and I forced a polite smile, hugging my daughter closer before guiding her toward the group of children in the den. Lily, sweet and eager, ran off to join her cousins without hesitation, her laughter mingling with theirs in a way that momentarily eased my tension. I found a seat near the edge of the living room, half listening as Samantha launched into another tale about her incredible opportunities, while my mother nodded with exaggerated approval. When I tried to share a small update about my work, my father cut me off, saying, "That's nice, but have you heard what Samantha's planning next?" Truly visionary. The dismissal was so familiar it barely stung, though the echo of old wounds throbbed quietly in the background of my mind. Samantha leaned in then, her voice low enough only I could hear, her smile never faltering. "Cute dress," she murmured, her eyes flicking to my outfit. "It's almost like you're trying to keep up with me." She pulled back before I could respond, turning her attention to another cousin as if nothing had happened, leaving me sitting there with the taste of her venom cloaked in sugar. As the evening wore on, the small jabs piled up, Samantha making jokes about me being the boring sister, my mother casually comparing Lily's shy nature to Samantha's bold confidence, and my father urging everyone to raise a toast to Samantha's bright future. I kept my composure, sipping my wine slowly, reminding myself that I was here for Lily, not for their approval. Every so often I glanced toward the den, catching glimpses of Lily's bright smile as she played tag and built block towers with her cousins, and those moments kept me grounded. Still, I couldn't ignore the creeping sense of unease that tightened in my chest each time Samantha's laughter rang out, sharp and gleeful, like the sound of someone who knew she still held all the power in the room. For a while, the rhythm of the party lulled me into thinking maybe, just maybe, this year would be different, until I realized I hadn't seen Lily in several minutes. At first I told myself she was probably still with the cousins in the den, or maybe helping my mother in the kitchen, but the uneasy silence in my chest began to grow louder with every passing second. I excused myself from a conversation I wasn't really a part of and moved quickly toward the den. Empty. No Lily. The kitchen. Just my mother humming as she arranged desserts, unaware of my frantic searching. My heart began to pound as I scanned the hallway, calling out Lily's name, forcing my voice to sound calm when it was anything but. No answer. A creeping panic clawed its way up my spine, each footstep heavier as I climbed the stairs, praying to find her curled up with a toy or giggling with her cousins. But when I pushed open the door to the guest bedroom, the world seemed to tilt off its axis. There was my little girl, my sweet Lily, crouched on the carpet, her small shoulders shaking with violent sobs, tufts of her beautiful chestnut hair scattered all around her like fallen leaves after a storm. Her head, nearly bare, was crudely, unevenly shaved, red patches where the razor had scraped too close. Standing around her were two of her cousins, holding clippers, their faces twisted with cruel amusement, and in the corner Samantha was leaning against the dresser, her phone raised, recording the entire scene as if it were the punchline of some sick comedy show. The sound of Lily's broken cry sliced through me, primal and raw, and for a moment I couldn't breathe, couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. Then rage, hot and blinding, surged through my veins. "What have you done?" I roared, rushing forward and wrapping Lily in the towel that had been tossed carelessly on the bed, pulling her trembling body against mine as if I could shield her from every shard of cruelty in the room. Samantha burst out laughing, the kind of laugh that was sharp and theatrical, meant for an audience. "Oh, relax," she drawled, lowering her phone but not stopping the recording. "It's just a joke." She screamed like we were killing her. It was hilarious. One of the cousins snickered, muttering something about going viral, and the bile rose in my throat. I pulled Lily closer, feeling her tears soak through my shirt, her tiny hands clutching at me in terror. "This is not a joke," I spat, my voice trembling with fury. "You assaulted my child." Samantha rolled her eyes, waving dismissively as if I were overreacting to a prank gone wrong. "Don't be so dramatic, Juliet. Hair grows back. Honestly, you should thank me." She looks edgy now. My vision blurred with rage. I wanted to snatch the phone out of her hand and smash it against the wall, to scream until the entire neighborhood heard me, but all I could do was rock Lily gently, whispering soothing words I wasn't sure she could even hear through her sobs. That was when my parents appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. My mother's eyes widened at the sight of Lily's butchered hair, but instead of outrage, her expression quickly hardened into annoyance. "What is going on up here? Dinner is getting cold." My voice shook as I turned to her, still cradling Lily. "Look at what Samantha and the others did to her. They held her down and shaved her head while filming it." For one fleeting moment, I thought I saw shock on her face, a glimpse of recognition at the horror of it all, but it vanished just as quickly, replaced by that familiar dismissive mask. "Well," she said coolly, "it's certainly not stylish, but it will grow back." Lily froze in my arms, her crying hiccuping into stunned silence, as if even she couldn't believe her grandmother's callousness. My father frowned, his gaze shifting uneasily between Samantha and me. "It's not ideal," he admitted slowly, "but maybe you're blowing this out of proportion. Kids do silly things. Hair isn't permanent." Samantha smirked, emboldened by their defense, and added, "See? Mom and Dad get it. You really need to lighten up, Juliet." At that moment, something inside me snapped, not just from the cruelty of what had been done to my daughter, but from the betrayal of the people who were supposed to love and protect us. The weight of years of favoritism, of being dismissed, of Samantha being excused for every cruelty, came crashing down in a tidal wave of fury and heartbreak. My voice was steel when I answered, "Don't you dare tell me this is nothing. Don't you dare tell me to lighten up when my child has been humiliated and terrorized." My mother opened her mouth to respond, but the look on my face must have stopped her, because she closed it again, lips pressed into a thin line. I shifted Lily in my arms, pressing a kiss against her tear-streaked cheek, And for the first time in my life, I realized I no longer cared about keeping peace, no longer cared about earning their approval. All I cared about was the trembling little girl in my arms, and the fact that my own family had failed her in the worst way possible. For a few seconds after I spoke, the room was heavy with silence, broken only by Lily's quiet sobs against my chest. Then, as if on cue, my mother sighed with exaggerated weariness, the same sigh she had used my entire life whenever I dared to challenge Samantha. "Juliet, you're overreacting," she said, her voice sharp with disapproval. "It was an immature prank, yes, but Samantha didn't mean any lasting harm. We can't blow this up into something bigger than it is. Think of the family." The word family came out like a command rather than a comfort, as though my role was not to protect my daughter but to preserve their fragile version of unity. My father nodded reluctantly, wringing his hands. "Your mother's right. This isn't worth destroying relationships over. You know how social media is. Things spiral out of control. If this gets out, Samantha's career could be ruined." At that, Samantha smirked and tossed her hair over her shoulder, still holding her phone, still recording as if my pain was content for her amusement. "Honestly, Jules, you're so dramatic. It's just hair. Lily will be fine. She'll laugh about this one day." Her chuckle was like nails on glass, cutting through me. I wanted to scream, to shake them all, to demand they look at the terrified little girl in my arms and tell me again that this was nothing. But instead I felt a strange calm settle over me, the clarity that comes when years of denial finally collapse. My whole childhood replayed in flashes, Samantha stealing my toys while my mother scolded me for not sharing, Samantha failing classes while I studied late into the night only to hear my parents praise her charm, Samantha ruining my senior prom dress with red wine, and my father laughing that girls will be girls. Every cruelty had been excused, every slight minimized, and I had swallowed my pain in the name of family peace. But this was different. This was my daughter. And watching them rally to Samantha's defense, watching them tell me yet again to swallow the hurt, I knew I had reached the breaking point. "Do you hear yourselves?" I demanded, my voice shaking but steady. She held down a child, your granddaughter, and shaved her head while filming it. "That's not a prank. That's assault. That's humiliation. And you're telling me to let it go because it might make Samantha look bad." My mother's eyes narrowed, her voice cold. "She's your sister, Juliet. Blood is blood. You don't turn on family." I let out a bitter laugh, one I barely recognized as my own. "Family? You're defending someone who brutalized your granddaughter because you care more about Samantha's image than Lily's trauma. If that's what family means to you, then I want no part of it." My father stepped forward, placing a tentative hand on my arm as though that would soothe me. "Please, just calm down. We'll make a statement. We'll say it was a misunderstanding. No need to involve police or lawyers. Think about the scandal. Think about what people will say about our family." I pulled back from his touch, feeling my stomach churn at the hypocrisy. "The scandal isn't that Samantha's behavior might be exposed," I said coldly. "The scandal is that you'd rather protect her than protect Lily." Samantha scoffed loudly, rolling her eyes. "God, you're insufferable. You've always been jealous of me, Jules. Always desperate for attention, always playing the victim. And now you're using your kid to make me look bad? Pathetic." Her words dripped with venom, but instead of igniting rage, they only solidified the icy clarity settling over me. For the first time, I wasn't scrambling to defend myself or second-guess my feelings. For the first time, I saw the truth of what this family had always been: Samantha's stage, my parents' denial, and my silence filling the cracks. Not anymore. I stood taller, adjusting Lily in my arms as her small fingers clutched my shoulder. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I won't let this go. Not for peace, not for appearances, not for Samantha. You've excused her cruelty my entire life, but I will not let my daughter be the next casualty of your favoritism." My mother opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off, my voice ringing sharper than I had ever dared in this house. You wanting to think about family? I am. I'm thinking about my family, me and Lily. And unlike you, I will protect her at all costs. For a moment, no one moved. My parents exchanged a look, their faces tight with disapproval, but also with something that looked like fear. Fear of losing control, of losing the daughter who had always bent for their comfort. Samantha laughed again, dismissive and cruel, but her laughter only echoed hollow in the space I had already stepped away from. This was no longer her stage. This was no longer their home for me. I pressed a kiss to Lily's head, meeting my parents' eyes one last time. You've shown me exactly where your loyalty lies. Don't expect mine to stay here. And with that, I turned, carrying Lily out of the room, out of the house, out of the suffocating cycle that had defined my life for far too long. The door closing behind me didn't just end the party, it ended decades of silence. The night air hit my face like a wave of clarity as I stepped out of the house with Lily clinging to me, her little arms wrapped so tightly around my neck it was as if she feared I might disappear too. She was trembling, her bald head pressed into my shoulder, muffling sobs that broke me in ways I didn't know I could break. I whispered over and over, "You're safe now, baby, Mommy's got you. No one will ever hurt you like this again." My words were promises as much as they were comfort, vows sealed not just by love but by fury that burned deep in my chest. I buckled her into the car seat, brushing her tears away, and for the first time since I was a child myself, I felt completely severed from my family. Driving away from that house, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror at Lily's reflection, her fragile attempts to be brave, and I knew this wasn't something I could just bury. By the time we got home, my phone was buzzing with messages from my parents. "You're overreacting. Don't do anything you'll regret. We'll handle Samantha internally." I didn't even bother replying. Instead, I sat on the couch with Lily curled against me under a blanket, her small body finally drifting into restless sleep, and I opened my phone. The video Samantha's friend had been recording was still in the group chat she'd arrogantly posted to, complete with laughing emojis and mocking captions. My hands shook as I downloaded it, not from fear but from resolve. For years I had been silent, absorbing the cruelty for the sake of appearances, but seeing my daughter's tear-streaked face on that screen hardened something in me. I uploaded the clip privately to my cloud, then drafted a message to my lawyer friend. If I wanted to press charges for assault and emotional abuse, what would I need? Almost instantly, she replied, "Keep the video. Write everything down. And don't let them intimidate you into silence." Her words felt like oxygen. I began documenting everything, Samantha's actions, my parents' enabling, the years of favoritism that had led here. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. If I didn't stand up now, Lily would grow up believing that cruelty disguised as family jokes was something she had to accept, and I refused to let her carry the chains I had worn for so long. The following morning, my parents showed up at my door, faces drawn tight, voices laced with urgency. They begged me to reconsider, to delete the video, to think about the scandal. My mother even had the audacity to say, "If you love us, you won't destroy Samantha's life over this." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "If you loved me or Lily, you never would have defended her in the first place." Closing the door on them was painful, but it was also the most liberating thing I had ever done. That evening, I sat down with Lily, who kept touching her shaved head in shame, and I told her, "Your hair will grow back, sweetheart. But what matters is that you know Mommy will never let anyone treat you like you don't matter. You are strong. You are beautiful. And you are worth fighting for." She nodded slowly, a tiny flicker of relief crossing her face, and I knew she believed me. I wasn't sure yet if I would go public with the video, but I did make one thing clear in the family group chat. If Samantha or anyone else contacts Lily directly, or if you continue to minimize what happened, I will not hesitate to involve the police and my attorney. Consider this your warning." Within seconds, Samantha exploded with furious messages calling me a traitor, a drama queen, a liar. My parents tried to mediate, saying, "Let's not escalate this further," but it was too late. The line had been drawn, and this time I wasn't backing down. For the first time in my life, I felt the power shift. They could call me dramatic, they could call me disloyal, but they could no longer control me. Because now I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for my daughter. As I tucked Lily into bed that night, her hand in mine, I whispered a silent promise into the dark: this cycle ends with me. No more silence, no more excuses, no more pretending that abuse is love. And as she drifted off, her breathing steady, I realized that even if my family never changed, even if I lost them completely, I had gained something far more important: freedom, and the unshakable bond with my child that no one could ever take away. Filing the police report was both terrifying and liberating, a step I had never imagined myself taking against my own sister, yet one I knew in my heart was necessary. Sitting in that sterile office, describing how my daughter had been pinned down and humiliated, I felt the weight of every time I had excused Samantha's cruelty in the past. But this time, the officer's calm nods and the steady scratch of his pen across paper reminded me I wasn't overreacting, I was finally acting. I also reached out to a lawyer who confirmed what I already suspected, that what had been done to Lily was assault, plain and simple, and that I had every right to protect her with the full strength of the law. Back at home, Lily began the slow process of healing. I enrolled her in therapy, where she met a gentle counselor who helped her name the hurt, confront the nightmares, and rebuild her confidence. At first, she refused to look in the mirror, tugging at hats and scarves, her little hands covering her head whenever someone visited. But over time, with patience, encouragement, and love, she began to smile again. I watched her rediscover joy in drawing, in reading stories at bedtime, in playing outside without shame. Every giggle was proof that resilience was stronger than cruelty. Meanwhile, my family continued their cycle, trying to claw back control under the guise of reconciliation. They called, texted, even showed up at my door with carefully rehearsed apologies that never mentioned Lily's pain but always circled back to Samantha's reputation. "She's facing so much backlash online. It could ruin her career," my mother pleaded. "Think about the family's name," my father added gravely, as though that legacy meant more than my child's trauma. I listened quietly, then told them the truth they didn't want to hear. "Until you value my daughter, we are not family." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with disbelief that I, the one who had always bent and broken myself to keep the peace, was finally standing unshakable. Their faces hardened, but I didn't flinch. For years, I had mistaken endurance for strength, but now I understood real strength was drawing a boundary and refusing to let anyone cross it. The weeks turned into months, and life began to reshape itself. Holidays were quieter, but also warmer, filled with genuine laughter rather than forced smiles. My circle of friends rallied around us, offering meals, hugs, and kindness that my blood relatives never had. I realized then that family isn't defined by shared DNA, but by love, respect, and protection. Lily continued to grow braver, even asking one evening, "Mom, will I ever see Grandma and Grandpa again?" I answered honestly, "Maybe one day if they truly change. But you never have to forgive someone who hasn't earned it." She nodded thoughtfully, and I marveled at her wisdom, so much deeper than her years. Looking back, I no longer saw the incident as just a cruel prank or even a betrayal. It was the breaking point that freed us from chains I hadn't dared to acknowledge. My sister's laughter had once echoed in my nightmares, but now it served as a reminder. Never again. Never again would I allow my child to be treated as entertainment. Never again would I sacrifice our well-being for the illusion of family unity, and never again would I confuse silence with peace. Healing wasn't immediate, and scars still lingered, but they no longer defined us, they strengthened us. And as I tucked Lily into bed each night, her head resting peacefully against her pillow, I whisper the truth we both now lived by. Sometimes family isn't who you're born to, it's who you choose to protect and who chooses to protect you. And in that choice, we had finally found freedom. Family is supposed to be a shelter, a place where you feel safe and valued. But what I've learned through this painful journey is that blood ties alone don't guarantee love, respect, or protection. That day at the party, when my little girl's trust was shattered and my sister laughed as though her cruelty was a joke, I realized something I had avoided for years. Sometimes the people who should protect us are the ones who hurt us most. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away, not because we want to, but because staying would cost us too much. I used to think family harmony meant keeping quiet, forgiving endlessly, and swallowing my own pain to keep the peace. But now I understand that real harmony is built on truth and safety, not silence and fear. My daughter taught me that protecting those we love sometimes requires the hardest choices, choices that outsiders might judge, but ones that deep down you know are the only way forward. To anyone watching this who has felt torn between loyalty to family and loyalty to yourself or your children, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not wrong for choosing safety over tradition. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. And you are not cruel for demanding respect. Family is not about appearances, it is about actions. And when someone shows you repeatedly that they value control or reputation over your well-being, you are allowed to say, enough. I thought losing my parents' and sisters' approval would break me, but what I lost was only the illusion of love they had already shown where their loyalty lay. What I gained instead was peace, clarity, and the strength to build a new kind of family with those who truly see and honor us. And that is what I want to leave with you today. Family is chosen every day, not inherited at birth. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with toxic relatives, even if it meant walking away from people you thought you couldn't live without? Have you ever been forced to choose between family loyalty and protecting your child's heart? Share your story in the comments, because someone out there needs to know they are not alone. If this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might need the reminder that healing is possible and that love built on respect is stronger than any toxic legacy. Thank you for being part of our journey, and remember, real family protects, it never destroys.